What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
Hey, everybody. Today's guest is Jesse Maxwell. Jesse is my little brother. He's one of my favorite people in the entire planet. He is. We've gone through a lot together in our lives. We have kind of a unique relationship where we didn't always love each other. I mean, I think we always loved each other, but there was a while where we hated each other, and that was, our closeness is very unique because of that. I feel like. But I love so much about you, and I'm super stoked to have you. I appreciate you being on today. Uh, why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about you?
Oh, where do you start? Uh, like from the beginning? I don't.
Well, who are you today?
uh, Father of four. Got the four kids. The two oldest ones are pretty much adults now, so they make time for me where they can. You know, that
As they
circle
do.
that circle of security is getting much bigger, so they need me significantly less.
Yeah.
Uh, so Aiden is 19, Asher's 17, and we got Leo and Kylie. Leo is 14 and Kylie is 5.5. So three boys and a daughter.
What do you like most about being a dad?
Um, Purpose and value, I guess. You don't always feel it, but sometimes you have moments. Um, I'll just tell you, like last night, we were laying in bed at me and Lindsay and Kylie, because of course she still finds comfort in crawling in our bed. Uh, there's just I had a moment with Kylie where I was like, hey, what's it like to be little and have your mom and your dad?
Hmm.
Right. So I get to have this conversation with my daughter to find out what it feels like, even at 5 years old, like what it feels like to like be snuggled up with your mom and your dad.
Yeah, what does
You
he
know,
say?
um, I can't remember exactly what she said because I was trying not to cry.
Yeah.
It's a true story, but um, she said something to the extent like, "Oh, it's wonderful, it's great," but she didn't. She asked me why I was asking. Because then I got a chance to tell her like I didn't know what that was like, and then her little quivered to
Oh,
just make let me know that like, oh, I'm here for you, Dad, and like a little.
yes,
So
he's super sweet.
it's moments like that I think
Yeah.
that are the best. Or going to like just an example, like I have this with all the kids, but like going to a wrestling tournament with Asher, and he's like, oh yeah, thanks for coming, Dad, or whatever, right? But then he does something, and then he like looks over to me and makes sure that like I'm still there and I'm still watching, and we catch eyes,
Yeah.
and it's like we have a moment where he knows he did something awesome, and he knows that I'm there, and it's just those are the moments I think. Right?
Yeah. So, at any point, did you ever feel bad when those moments happened? Like, did you feel guilty because we weren't always there for our kids?
Yeah, I mean, there's still always a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Like I want to spend more money and buy nicer things and do the fun stuff like all the time because I just wasn't there for so long. So there's always a part of me that's trying to make up for that.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's getting few and far between now
Nice. So
because
you could actually celebrate it because you're removed enough from it and you've healed enough through it that you're actually experiencing the victory in it.
yes, and I've done so much of my own work around it, like in therapy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, therapy was so big for me in that for anyone who doesn't know, Jesse and I both experienced both not having fathers in our lives for much of our lives. And then, we had mom, but mom was struggling with a lot of things for most of our childhood and did her best, but we didn't have a lot of support. And then through addiction of our own, each of us has our own addiction story, and that addiction story uh, meant that we also weren't present for our kids at some point in their lives. So they're, you know, I know your story. I know that it's similar to mine in the sense that like therapy was huge in getting getting help working through like that guilt and shame of not being there. And plus, like I never wanted to be the parents that my parents were to me. And so then, locked in addiction and I'm sitting there going, I've become everything I ever
Yep.
said I wouldn't.
Yep. All the things I promised myself I would never be.
Yeah.
You know, an active father, a felon, and a drug addict. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So then you spend just years drowning in that guilt and shame. But then, I mean, through therapy, right, and other appropriate avenues, like we got to like move through that, and it's not. It was like a driving factor in continuing to keep us in those addictions and the lifestyle. But
Yeah.
yeah, and you say it like therapy was, but I still do therapy twice a week,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
I need it. Like it's my safe place. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So and it's just yeah.
Yeah. And I did therapy for 3 years. Well, a lot of that time I had two therapists. And I feel like I have a lot of advisors in my life still today that act as therapists.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if we're being honest, like I'm still going to therapy as well,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And I can't imagine my life without it because I think it's easy for us as humans to not want to feel broken because it's easy to feel like we're not enough if we're broken still. And what helped me a lot was realizing like that we're all broken, we're all fractured, we're all going through something, we all have hurts and hangups, and like we welcome those, like in the steps we talk about, like the big thing is acknowledging we have a problem, right? If we're just ignoring it or lying to ourselves, then there's no way to work through it. And so for you, like you experienced addiction during the time that your boys were little, right? What do you feel like happened that created a recovery for you?
I don't know if it was like one thing specific. I just remember it's. I know that it was really hard to look to hear like, oh, hey, I'm gonna bring the boys over because I mean there's just so much to that, right? There like, hey, I'm gonna bring the kids over, or I had to fight for it, right? Um, not there was just a like a tumultuous relationship with the two oldest boys' mom.
Yeah.
Um, she's a great woman, great mother. We didn't get along. I mean, some of that probably had to do with me, some of it had to do with her, but it's neither here nor there. If that's clearly not even how you say that saying.
I think we're picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like to now I've got to figure out like how I'm gonna get substances so that I can get through like 2 days with the kids so I don't get sick or I don't feel, you know what I mean? And it was
Yeah.
just this cycle of like making sure I had enough to get through the moments so that I could get to myself to the point where I could figure out how to get some more and to get through other moments. And it was just this,
Did you feel like you had a choice in that?
no. I mean, at first you do, right? But then it gets to the point where without it, like I mean, you're sick. You're laying in bed. The cold chills. It's um, it's a prison.
Yeah.
Um, but on top of that, like realizing that was becoming a part of my life, like a driving force. Is like, how do I get enough to use enough to get to a point where I can find some more to have enough to, and it was a lot. But I just remember there's one time I was like sitting on the end of my bed. I don't know how I'm gonna just stay away from like details. I just don't want to
Just
activate
share stuff.
anybody. Remember there's one time because I'm living in this tiny little creepy house that doesn't sit right, right? The windows are broke out and um I was sitting on the end of this bed and I had I was an IV drug user, so I had one ready to go and I was sitting on the end of the bed and I was like sitting there staring at it and I was crying because I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how not to,
Yeah.
right? And that had never happened to me before. I just knew that I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know how. So in order to get rid of those feelings, I used it and I felt better for a little bit, right? But then that pushed that to the back. So there were moments like that, I think uh that told me that I wanted to do something else and that I really didn't know how.
Yeah.
So
Do you think there, because there had to be something different in that moment, right? Because there were definitely times prior to that where you're like, I probably shouldn't be doing this, right?
Yeah, fleeting thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. So something took it from a normal fleeting thought, which, dude, I get it because I'm a recovering addict myself, and I remember all too well that feeling, and I can tell you, I it's 100% how I felt too, right? But in your story, there had to be something that changed it from a fleeting thought to something that locked in for you in that moment that said, like, this isn't just fleeting. Like, I don't like this anymore. I don't want this as a part of my life.
Yeah, I don't yes. I mean there had to be moments like that. I know that there were, but I don't remember like the thought process. I just remember the feeling.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was kind of at rock bottom enough to where like thoughts of like suicide started to creep in more often.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to die, but I kept thinking about it. And that was another driving factor. It's like I had these beautiful kids that I couldn't show up for, and people keep giving me opportunities, and I just was shitting on all of it, and it was gonna lead somewhere, and I didn't want it to be my funeral.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super challenging. Like, it's not a cop out, but addiction is something that we didn't ask for. And, a lot of people think about addiction differently. The truth is like there's nobody truly knows, but I was here listening to this thing the other day, talking about so what's the chemical in your brain that goes off when you're working out or when you're doing something that is esteemable.
Dopamine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dopamine. So they were talking about dopamine and the effects on our brain and how they're finally finding that that dopamine affects an addict differently.
Yeah.
And we get locked in, like especially in a world today where everything's a lot easier. Everything's just easier, where we can get a hit that quick from, you know, turning on a video game or ordering as much food from you as you want from the store, and you don't even got to go anywhere.
Mhm.
Like, it's just talking about all these things and how, like, back in the day, why weren't there addicts? Well, people had to like go kill their food and then prepare that food and to stay alive while they're preparing that food because it took days. And now we just like go to Burger King, right? To feed that dopamine hit that just makes us
Yeah,
feel.
well, it's part of this limbic system that was built into, and I love this topic. I'm really glad you brought it up. So there's this limbic system that's built into most creatures, most animals, right? And it can even be identified in flies. Whereas that when we were troglodytes, right, living in caves, in order to survive, procreate, what we would go out and find like sugary or fatty foods, and our body would give us a reward that would create a memory to continue to do that, right? Because
Yeah,
we need it for survival. Same with
absolutely.
sex, right? So these systems were built in to keep our species going. And just thinking about that they've even identified this in flies, this limbic system. Uh, and it kept us alive, right? We remember like, oh, we can eat these berries because it made us feel good. We got nutrients from it, all that stuff, right? Great when we were living in caves and we had to find this stuff to survive.
Yeah,
But now it's so readily available. And they think that that is the same system. So some people think it's the same system. There's lots of different beliefs on
sure.
it, right? That's the same system that's being tied into, right? So we take drugs. I don't know if you know much about like the dopamine scale, right? But like food or sex is like 100 and 150, typically. Methamphetamines is like 1,000 on the dopamine scale. I want to say, don't quote me, but heroin is a little bit less, but the dopamine is extended for longer.
Yeah,
Um, but the system is built into us to survive, and then we're tapping into that, right?
which is
It-
very normal, right? It's there to be used, like it was given to us,
right.
as a useful tool, and it still is. Like it still is, whether you're an addict or you're not. Like it was sharing that the difference between an addict and a non-addict is that in an addict, at some point, the bridge between the two breaks, and you no longer get that same dopamine hit.
Mhm.
Your body either builds up a tolerance or it no longer has the ability, but your mind still chases it. Your body still chases it. And so, like you said, there's a lot of different theories about that. But what I do know is there were tests done on rats where they the rat would always do the goal.
Mhm.
But as soon as they gave that rat drugs, cocaine, the rat would only do it if it was given the cocaine. So it's like there's definitely something in there that once that is entered into the system, it changes the entire game.
Mhm. Yeah, and that when you're talking about the rats, right, is they put the rat in a cage by itself, and it would have the cocaine water, the drug water, and then the regular water, and it was almost always consistently drink that drug water when it was alone until it would like either overdose or die,
Yeah.
right? But then quite a few years later, there's another guy that came along. I can't remember his name at the moment. I'm just very excited to be here, so like all my stuff's not. Um, but he created what was called Rat Park because he's like, well, yeah, but he's in a cage by himself. Right. So, and this is part of the social theory of addiction, right? What causes addiction? Because what we were just talking about was the biological,
Right.
right? So now we're talking about the social. Uh, but he built this rat park, had they could have lots of sex, they had lots of toys, like all that stuff, lots of people to or other rats to mess with, right? And they would almost never touch the drug water, and there was 0% overdoses, right? And that's it's the same. The social theory is that if there it's about your environment,
Yeah.
right? If you have lots of people you love and relationships and all this stuff, right, that you won't resort to that. And I think that sure that's true in some cases, but I don't think that's the only reason,
Yeah. I mean,
right?
I know people who share with me that they had a perfect life as far as perfect could be perfect. They had supportive parents. They grew up financially healthy. They got straight A's in school. They did all the right things. They didn't drink until they were 30 years old. And then as soon as alcohol entered their system, it was on. Like
Hmm.
they couldn't not do it. But there are plenty of people in the world who, same scenario, it enters their system and they never have a problem,
Hmm.
right? And so that's the difficulty is like each of us have our own story and each of our stories are powerful in their own way, but we also have to remember like forget what we think we know. It's forget what we think we know is a huge motto in my life because everything can change in a moment, right?
Yeah.
Every single human is different and unique, and what got them there and what's going to get them out of there is always going to be potentially different. It's going to fluctuate. What do you think that we can do? Because if you don't know this, everybody, Jesse is in the recovery field. And if you wanted to share where you work and all that, that's fine.
Yeah.
I won't share it for you. But Jesse trains people who become peer specialists in the recovery field. So he's training people to help people who are struggling with addiction. And and you could tell just by the way you talk and the things you say and your excitement around it. I'm so glad you do something you love. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
a big deal. But you know, everybody being unique creates a unique problem, which is there's no like, there's no easy button, right? So, is there anything that you would say that we could do? Because you're saying like people came in your life and they couldn't do anything to change it. Like they weren't going to say stop in a certain way and you were going to stop, right? So what that tells me is that outside influence is important, but it's not the solution. So, but there has to be something we can do for the people we love. Like what can we do for the person that we love to make sure that they know we're loved, but not feed into the addiction to enabling.
Yeah. It's really hard because if we're talking about like how you would approach that in like at peer support opposed to how you would approach that in your own life, it's not the same.
Yeah,
The
no, and that's what I
this
mean,
the
personal level. Like,
there I don't think it's hard because you have to I'll use you for an example. Uh, I didn't know what, so I know I needed something, but I didn't know what it was. And every time uh, I wasn't okay and I called you, you'd show up. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to give you money, but I'll show up for you,
Yeah.
right? I'm always at the other end of this phone, but you can't sleep at my house, right? So there's these healthy boundaries that you set while consistently showing up and letting me know that you love me, that there was somebody who loved me unconditionally, despite all of the stuff that I was doing and going through. But you weren't going to make it easy on me,
Yeah.
right? And I think that was another huge driving factor in that is that showing up for people. And if an addict is completely happy with everything that you're doing, then you're doing it wrong,
Yeah.
right? Um, that has to be these healthy boundaries. You can't sleep in my house, and I'm not going to let you borrow my car. And you can't, I'm not going to give you money. All these things, right? But the consistently showing up, like, hey, I love you, and I don't want you to be or feel alone,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to make it easy on you.
For
I
sure.
think is that's changed the game for me.
Absolutely. And I'm glad it went that direction because that's what where I was leading was that. So I am a life coach for quite a few different families and both helping the child and then both helping the mother and father like navigate it because it's just so challenging because like they'll come to me and even after a year of communicating they'll say like but I have to let him come home. It's cold out, like I have to let him come home. And it's like, I respectfully am begging you not to do that because not only in other story, but in my story, it was like my addicted mom finally like went inside and locked the door. And it forced me to rock bottom. It forced me into a place where like if she would have kept letting me stay there, I probably would still be a using addict. I mean, who
I don't think
knows?
you would have made
But
it this far.
no,
Neither one of us would have.
no. And so, like, that boundary is so epically important, but it's like trying to convey that to somebody who is like just panicked that because, like to them, they're going to go die now. They're just going to go to Portland, live on the street, and die,
Or anywhere for that matter,
or wherever.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's not just because Portland's weird. It's like you go anywhere, not where we can see you. Like that's even my own kids. That has happened to me. After my son got in that horrible accident, it's like every time he would leave, I would go, okay, it's gonna be fine. He's
Mm,
not gonna die in a car accident. So some of that is normal, but I ask because I need people to understand that we can love someone to death, right?
absolutely. Yep.
We can feed into the problem by being so codependent and so in need of just making sure they know that we love them that we can feed a problem. And what I hear you saying is that your solution, what helped you in a moment, wasn't me. It was the opposite of me giving you money. It was the opposite of me letting you have somewhere to stay. It was just like just showing up and
Hmm.
being that reminder.
Yep. I mean, you essentially like you taught me what it looked like because you had done all you had done so much work in the what 2.5 years before I ever entered recovery. Is that you showed me what that looked like to set boundaries and to do what you were say you're going to do and to follow through and like you showed me all of these things and at first it pissed me off.
Yeah,
Like, no, you can't sleep in the shed. I'm like, what? How can you do that to me?
yeah,
Your brother. How dare you do that to me?
yeah,
Right. And then I started to get my stuff together and I look back and I was like, wow, he didn't do that to me. He did it for him and his family. Right. And I hope that somebody hears this and hears that like those moments are super uncomfortable in the moment.
yeah,
And it hurt, especially if it's a parent and a child, right? I know there's times where like I don't know. I just know that parents get to the point where they're like, well, where did I go wrong or what could I have done differently? This is somehow my fault. So
yeah,
now they're going
yeah,
to parent out of guilt, right?
yeah,
They're saying, well, I have to make up for this by, showing up for them and giving them money and paying their rent and all this stuff. But that's one shovel at a time.
yeah,
Like you're helping bury that kid. And
yeah.
it's it's really hard to see that from inside. But when you're standing outside and you've got that lived experience and you know what that feels like and looks like, you can look in and see like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah.
This isn't good. But
Well, and the truth is too, like what's important that people understand is that it was such a horrible feeling for me to do that, have that boundary.
yeah,
It didn't feel good to think it. It didn't feel good then to have to say it because, like, I don't want to. This isn't competition, but you're like ridiculously important to me, and you're you're like I don't know, definitely top 10, maybe top one. I mean, there's who's I'm not good at
I mean,
math,
that's a gap. I mean, that's a gap. So we don't
there's
need to narrow it down.
there's
You
a
know what I
reason.
mean?
We're just gonna leave
But
it then. We're just gonna leave this right here. And but so that makes it that much more difficult because you're just so important to me. And um, I hung up the phone that time and went and cried.
yeah,
I went and bawled because it was like, I can't believe I'm letting him down. Even though I knew like the me that had gained all the knowledge to like set a good boundary and to make the healthy decision, still had the other me that was like, you are a horrible person.
mm,
You know? Luckily though, and Will Smith and some other people share it really well, it's like, don't don't well, how do he basically Will Smith in his book he talks about how he had the him that was the beast, the one that would scream and would get over energized in things and would make bad decisions and not treat people right. And then he had the him that was vulnerable and all of these other things. And he says, well, how do I get rid of this beast when that beast is what got me success? That beast is what kept driving me to be better and stronger and faster and
yeah,
my success is because of that. And basically the person said, you stop feeding it, right? You don't need it to go away because it's an important part of who you are, but feed this person. Don't feed that beast, right?
yeah.
And that's for me like normalizing some of what feels psychotic sometimes with the different thinkers in my mind who are thinking opposite thoughts. It's like they're my therapist taught me like it's it's choosing not to put labels, choosing not to judge those people is what's going to be key in all of it. It's like just accept the thoughts that we're having, but having that boundary happen because I had the lived experience, I knew that it had been done to me and it helped me. And so even though it was challenging, I knew it was the right thing to do. And I appreciate you coming back later and saying it. Like I've heard you say this a few times. And it was very helpful for me to hear like you solidified that boundary and help me want to be a better man by continuing to make the tough decisions.
Mm,
One of the things it was really interesting because I've always been more like the shy guy. You've always been more of the like popular, outgoing, funny guy. And it's always been your humor has always been your superpower, whether it's used for good or used for bad. It's always been your superpower. When you first got sober, I was trying not to like make you be too serious, but you were also trying to like help me not take myself so seriously
mm.
because I took myself very seriously. I was afraid of everything. Afraid of what everybody thought of me, afraid of. So, what do you, why is humor so important in your life?
I mean, I think there's lots of reasons that it's important to me. Well, I built this unhealthy relationship with humor because it was my way of coping with, traumatic moments and really uncomfortable moments. And if I could make people laugh, then it was less uncomfortable for me. It was a deflection tool and a coping mechanism, right? And it's a really useful tool, but originally it was like a tool for survival.
Yeah.
Um, and then I moved into this where I was trying to be more of a professional. And then my humor just kept getting me, I'll be honest, it kept getting me in the HR office, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I uh because I was still using that unhealthy tool, that tool in an unhealthy way. Um
Do you
so
think it
it's
made that dopamine fire?
100%. Well, when other people were laughing, then it gave me value and purpose, but I was looking for it in the wrong way. Uh, but then I was able to use it in a way that like I would go into the hospital. I was on call. I was working at this, it's called ESPERT, Screening, Brief Interventions, and Referral to Treatment for a nonprofit. Um, and I was like going to the hospital, and then people were like in the hospital bed. They had either like alcohol or drugs in their system, or alcohol drug related something that got them into the hospital. They were in the very like just in the shit, like the very bottom of. But I was like, I wonder if I can make these people laugh. Probably not like a great situation. And like, wow, they're really down. But if I can make them laugh in that moment, it wasn't about being in the hospital or needing treatment or not showing up for their kids or any of that stuff. It was just two people having a moment. Uh, and I saw that when I can make people in those positions laugh, um, it was driving connection.
Yeah.
Right? It was a driving factor in connection with other people.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't want to get rid of that. I had to learn to tailor it so that it didn't have a negative impact on my professional career, but also that I didn't bury it so much um, that I was only focused on my professional career. Uh, but I mean, it's a tool for um, connection,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's really important.
No, it's so important. Like, and part of the reason why you have helped me learn to not take myself so seriously is because I see the importance. Like, there is a part of me that always wanted to make people laugh like you did. Uh, and what's interesting is that it, like the humor itself, could be a driving force to negative, or it could be a driving force to positive, in the sense of if I allowed it to become jealousy, then it didn't feed anything healthy. But if I allowed it to be a driver to help me find a way to be less serious in life and be able to take a joke, like one of the worst, I look back, like in high school, I talked to this girl, her name's Nicole, and I had the hots for Nicole for a long time. And she was so mean to me. Like I walked by her one day and I was like, hey, what's up? And she's just completely rude to me. And what's interesting is when I think I was 22, I saw her and I like just got the guts and I walked up to her and I said, hey, why are you so mean to me? And she's like, you are a total asshole. Like, we could make a joke and you would think that joke was about you and scream and get mad at everybody, because I was so selfish. And a lot of it was from trauma, but I was so selfish that anything that anyone said in within earpoint was
Was about
about me.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you were like that for a long time.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was most of my life, right? I got sober at 30, and I was basically an 18-year-old boy, maybe, maybe like at a maturity level. Uh, and I was still, everything offended me. Everything made me angry. Everything felt like people being mean. And I'm still a very insecure person. I'm working on insecurities every single day, because I definitely will I'll not only want to love myself, but I like anytime I'm insecure, I'm in fear, and when I'm in fear, I'm not living my life. So I don't want to live my life that way, but it was an eye opener. And so started working really hard to not take myself so seriously and be able to take a joke. And instead of like, what did they mean by that? Just like, no, try to like believe that people's intentions were good regardless. And when I started deciding that people's intentions were good regardless, because I'm a firm believer that people are born good and then we do things. We are who we are, and then we do things. And we're still good people even if we do bad things, right? And so I try to remove the judgment and instead just like be a part of it. And it helped me a lot in just like finding humor in life. And honest to God, like after that, and like being open to your humor and judging your humor less, I found movies funnier. I found comedians funnier. It opened up like this crazy cool door for me. And I think like I love making people laugh today. It's the ultimate high. Is just having people laugh so hard their stomach hurts
Hmm.
and being able to laugh with them. And so I see that and I get it. And it's like what I hear you saying is like anything to a degree, anything with good intention can be healthy, right? And it's what we do with it.
Yes. Yeah, intention is important. Uh, but anything uh used, I don't want to use like the word aggressively, but like overly used in we all know that humor can be a tool of deflection and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's just the intention behind it is really important.
Yeah.
But we also have to remember that intention is not perception. And I learned this the hard way,
Yeah.
right? So even if I intend something to be a joke, it doesn't mean it's going to be perceived that way. So I have
Sure.
to, so you, I don't know. There's a lot of things that you taught me that, um, that I think that would have taken me years to figure out by myself, right? Uh, but you definitely supported me. You helped me in realizing that yes, you can be funny, but also like when is the appropriate time?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian. Now I facilitate these trainings, and I make jokes sometimes, and I'm like, oh, this is a really good opportunity for me to practice some of my stand-up material in front of this 30 people or whatever. Uh, but if it hadn't been for all of that stuff, then I wouldn't be able to process like, oh, is this an appropriate time? Is this an appropriate joke? If I make a joke now, am I taking away from the emotion or the feeling of the content that we're discussing right now? Because we talk about hard, heavy stuff,
Yeah.
right? And then all the people in the room have lived experience. Uh, but I think that you gave me the ability to balance that
Mm.
in a way that kept me out of HR's office, right? But also was a connection, like a driving force in connecting with the people that I'm supporting. Because nobody wants to go to a training and have it be like dry and monotone the whole
Mm.
time, right? And I
Yeah.
learned early that if the person at the front of the room made me laugh, then I'm significantly more likely uh to to obtain the information that they have or retain it
Yeah.
and carry it with me.
Yeah. That's how I'm in board meetings. I hate, I'm on a lot of boards and board meetings can be very boarding. Uh, and
That's awful.
all right, moving on. Uh, no, but it's like I love going into a place that's just raw and just like having a good time. And donuts help me a lot. Like I'd have donuts, but humor is like the second thing. So donuts and humor. If you ever need to make a situation better, don't donuts and humor.
Mm, I'm here for it.
I am grateful that I've been able to get sober and be any type of positive role model for you because like we were dealt a pretty shit hand. And I tell people like recovery wasn't my second chance at life, it was my first chance. We didn't have a first shot. We didn't. We were the lowest of low incomes with no fathers, with a mother who was did her best, but like was dealt with the same abuses and traumas and was doing the best she could, but she was in the lock of addiction too. And like, man, there's a lot of things that just messed us up growing up. And I'm just grateful that life decided to use us in some pretty cool ways. And what I've found in my life is that if I had to go back and I had the option to remove all the pain, I wouldn't do it.
Mm,
You feel the same way?
yeah, 100%. Those are the moments that made me who I am today,
Yeah.
right? I had to learn the hard way because I wasn't like, oh, you just shared really important information with me. Well, I'm going to take that and I'm going to apply it to my life and everything's going to be great. It wasn't,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't like that for me. I didn't want to. Sorry, there's little stuff on here. It's making me crazy. Uh, I didn't do. I had to learn the hard way. But all those moments, and even like, yeah, mom did the best she could, right? And I know that she still walks around with guilt from all that stuff. But and I've tried to tell her too, like, hey, it's those moments, those defining moments in people's lives that build character and make them who they are. And if it hadn't been for those moments, there let's say we did grow up and everything was great and all that stuff, right? And then I would have gotten to these other moments in my life where I wouldn't have known what to do.
Yeah.
I may not have made it through those because I didn't have all this other stuff beforehand
Yeah.
that was that created bruises and broken bones, right? And both literally and metaphorically, right? That now my body, my spirit is able to navigate other stuff, harder stuff that I mean, people that don't go through that stuff don't always know how to handle it,
Right.
right? But it all happened for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe in fate or any of that stuff. What I do know is that it made me who I am today, and I wouldn't change anything.
For sure. A conversation I've had with mom a few times is like, let's acknowledge this. What I believe mom's biggest mistake ever was my father, right? But if she didn't make that mistake,
She
we're,
wouldn't have had this mistake.
I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking to you.
Yeah.
The person wouldn't be watching this podcast and going, "Oh my gosh, I am normal," or whatever someone's learning right now. Like, so much of existence changes. Her biggest mistake was the biggest miracle.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have a lot of those moments in my life. I feel like you have a lot of those moments in your life. And I share the word miracle loosely because what's cool about miracles is you said, well, I don't know if I believe in, I don't know if I believe in. The truth is, what's amazing about miracles is they happen regardless of what you believe, right?
That's fair.
Like we've had how many, there's so many things in our lives we can't explain.
Mhm.
How we're alive, how we got sober when some don't, some die, addicts and alcoholics. How where our brains have been given the opportunity to rebuild from all the horrible drugs we did and come back and then like facilitate trainings for people when at one point you couldn't even formulate thoughts or remember what you had eaten for lunch. Like that's crazy, right? It's a
Yeah.
miracle.
Yeah. And I said I was unsure if I believed in fate. I don't really, and here's the thing is like I don't know about the whole like religion or spirituality. I don't understand any of that.
Yeah, no one
Um,
does.
that's fair, right? Uh, I mean, yeah, so I don't know if it is or isn't. I just don't. I'm trying to stay very neutral and stuff like that because I
Sure.
just don't. I don't know, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to speak a truth that isn't mine that I'm unsure of. So
And
then
that's
that's
my
what I meant. But yeah, we've seen moments where it's like there's no way that things would line up the way that they did
yeah.
this way if there wasn't something else happening,
Hmm.
right? So
And that's the big point for me is like you don't have to know
right,
that if we put God in a box, then we limit him. If we put life in a box, we limit it. If we, it's like I live so much of my life like this,
mm-hmm.
and I'm on the other side, right? It's a mirror. I'm like so narrow-minded, so narrow-focused, and I'm the only thing I see. I'm the important thing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like all I do is pull my hands away, and it's like, oh my gosh, this world's crazy. I remember at like 31, looking up at the sky, going, "Holy cow, the sky's beautiful." Not because the sky was beautiful, but because I don't remember the last time I had looked up at the sky. Right?
Right,
I got in a plane at 32 for the first time in my life, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, this world is huge. This world is huge." And all of a sudden, like I
yeah,
felt so small. you know,
yeah. I don't the whole getting on a plane thing. That's wild.
you're gonna do it someday.
I don't know if I am.
You have to.
I don't know.
It's an experience that you
It's,
have to experience.
I mean,
We'll share later on how you faced your fear and
uh,
got on a plane,
yeah, later episode.
right?
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll talk about fear and
It's,
fear of flight. I mean, right
what is
now,
that? Episode
170.
3,400?
Yeah,
Okay.
3,000 is great.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, planes are probably not a fear that people are really going to pick up on right now. Because if you haven't noticed, planes are going down like birds right now. I'm not sure.
I know we should not be laughing about this.
This is an uncomfortable laugh.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
isn't.
That's,
It's just like when I've taken some lessons to be a pilot, and all this has really slowed my want to fly planes. It's like, what's going on? I just want to know what's going on.
uh, and just real quick for anybody who's offended by our laughter about planes going down. Yeah, it wasn't because we think it's funny. It's just like it's surprising, and I mean, it just kind of solidifies my fear of like being
Yeah.
up there,
Like,
right?
how can you want to face a fear? It's like it's like, yeah, I'm gonna face my fear of bungee jumping, and then they're like, oh, did you hear about Adam yesterday, who bungee jumped and then the cord broke?
Cord snap. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I changed my mind.
So it can happen, right? So
So
planes.
what you're saying is there's a chance. That I think that changes it from a fear to a reality, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't want fear to like be a driving factor in like me never doing some things. But I
Yes.
think that there are some things that I do get to have control over,
Yeah.
and not getting in a plane where, I mean, I'm not wearing a parachute and I like,
How about one where you are wearing a parachute?
I don't, maybe strapped to somebody else who's been wearing a parachute for a long time,
Oh, I like it,
you
dude.
know?
When I went skydiving, like, I don't know if you remember this, but I was afraid of
Oh,
water. I was
geez.
afraid of heights.
I
I was,
literally got like a like visceral like reaction to thinking about jumping out of a plane strapped to another person.
it's scary.
It's not for, I don't know if it's for me, man.
Mine was a nightmare. Well,
You paid to tell a story about how it was a nightmare.
yeah.
That
Well,
sounds like a great
but
investment.
I wouldn't change it. That's the crazy part. That like feeds
Mhm.
into this like miracle thing. Is like would never do it again. There was like a 16-year-old girl there. It was like, okay, I'm on my 27th jump, and they're like, you were here yesterday, and she's like, yeah, let's go. And then I remember like jumping out, going, how? How could you ever want to do this ever again?
Yeah.
But it's like I wouldn't change it either. I got to do it as a first with my wife, who will wanted to do it really bad, and who, by the way, handled it like a champ, loved it, and I was like broken. I was just like mentally, emotionally, ever my whole life was like shattered in a moment. Uh, but she was fine. She was like, "How was it?" Oh, like, let's not talk about it. But again, I wouldn't go back and change it, and that's the cool part. It's like regret doesn't get us anywhere. Have shame. Shame is there to help us see that we don't like it, right?
Well, guilt is.
What does
Guilt
shame
comes
do?
guilt comes from within. I think that we have guilt. It's designed to help us change our behaviors.
Mhm.
I think shame that you can only get from other people. Right? I feel shame because of what you say or do or
That's an
think about
interesting
me.
perspective.
Yeah.
For me, it's oddly different because guilt is like guilty, like to blame, and shame is you can feel it regardless.
Hmm.
So I don't think everyone's.
Opposite sides of the spectrum.
Speaking of spectrum, this is why I'm such a weirdo. Okay. So we talked about a lot of stuff that I want to talk about today. So, is there anything else that you want to add? Anything that you want to talk about?
Anything in particular? No, I mean, I'm sure there is. And if they get up and walk out of here right now, I'm gonna get to the car and think of 8 things that I wish I would have brought up. I think this is potentially a really good platform to get a lot of good messages and experience and knowledge out into the world. And I'm just really hoping that this grows into something that people that look forward to. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Because we know so many incredible people that have so much amazing information and experience. Um, even in our small town, uh, I don't know what is 66,000 small. It feels small, um, but I just think that there's a lot of amazing like lights that are shining here, and I don't know. I just am dreaming big, you know.
yeah. First of all, we're closer to 30,000. So I don't know if you're thinking of Newburgh and McMinnville. Well, Newburgh and McMinnville together are like 60s.
Really?
Yeah, like we are small.
I'm gonna have to give it the old googs.
Somebody said the other day that it went from 33 to 30, even though we've grown. So we don't. Somebody's not doing math correctly somewhere. But I do too, dude. This is like a big deal. You and I, a big thing when I got into recovery and you weren't was that we were gonna my motto for us was we're gonna fly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always been that. For a while it was like I felt like I was leaving you behind because I just wanted you to get sober so bad. But you and I have talked for a long time about doing a podcast where we can both be serious and make people laugh. Um, and so, our lives are what they are. We're very busy. I own a business. You're out training people like crazy. Like we're on boards and doing big things and all of that. But this is important to me. And you know, from the beginning, you and I wanted to do this together. So the goal is you're going to co-host as many as you possibly can. We're gonna try to make sure that we do this as a team as much as possible. We may or may not be able to do that all the time, but we're going to do our best. I hope that people like, subscribe, follow us so that we can share what I feel like is a unique perspective on life, addiction. We've experienced homelessness. We've experienced a lot of the things in life that hopefully most people don't have to ever experience. But we've also experienced success and being present fathers and you know, changing a cycle and have victory, like just amazing victory over some really difficult challenges and not taking life so serious and learning to laugh about things like plane crashes. I think it's less about the plane crashes. I think it's more in the sense of like instead of going inward and feeling broken, we laugh to, whether it's an awkwardness or whatever. Like that's how I learned to not take myself so seriously.
Right, right. I know. I just love that we came full circle. I'm
Yeah.
like, sorry that we laughed about that, and you're like,
Let's talk about planes again. Okay, moving on from planes. So, one of the things that I like to do is do some trivia. You may not ever be answering it again, but so we're gonna make sure to ask you some trivia. Okay.
Okay.
Some of my favorite things in the world are music, TV, especially like streaming shows, and movies. And so
I used to be really good at this sort of thing, but
I know,
I
I
bet
know.
I'm out of the loop a
My
little bit.
hope is that you just suck at it and just shame yourself guilt yourself. So we'll see, we'll see.
Okay,
I
thank you.
I feel like I made them pretty easy.
Okay.
So that's good and bad because it's good because it's easy. It's bad because it's so
So
easy
easy.
that if you
Yeah.
don't get it,
Yeah.
then everybody's gonna comment
This
and
game spiral.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I hope you don't get bullied too bad. In my favorite movie, what is the name of the town where Marty McFly lives?
Oh man. Oh, there's a sign too. I'm
Yeah,
trying to think of the sign.
and no pressure. This is literally the easiest one on here.
It's been so long since I've seen the movie. It's like, oh, I want to say like Pleasant Summer. I don't, it's something. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
What about a second? Do you think there's a second word involved?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I said something.
No, well, it's like Pleasant, like, I don't know.
It's not pleasant.
It's, I don't know. It might not start with a P, but there's like a
I know why you think it's a P. I think. Um,
point. There's like a something. Well,
yeah. You, you want me to tell you? You want to give up and be shamed forever?
yes. Yep. Shame me.
Hill Valley.
Oh, dang it.
Oh. Okay, this next one's harder.
Oh,
So
perfect.
I feel.
Yeah.
Um.
Wait, Hill Valley?
Yeah, Hill Valley.
Like Square Circle Road.
I was thinking that. I was like trying to give you a hint.
Yeah,
Like,
but this is made in what the 80s, right? Hill Valley. Yeah. It's a river
Hill
spring.
Valley. Hill Valley. It's
River
like Hill Valley,
Spring.
River Street Ocean.
We're just smashing on this movie that was like a
Greatest
quote
movie of all
classic.
time. Like there I have autographed hoverboard by Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Because I love it so much. Okay. What drink does Marty order in Back to the Future Part 2? 5 bonus points because it's difficult.
What?
I didn't even know.
But
I love this movie.
Pepsi?
What type of Pepsi? I'm impressed.
um Pepsi Zero or
No,
Diet Pepsi.
nope.
I don't know, but I
It's
remember.
not a real type of Pepsi.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know that was a Pepsi.
Pepsi Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
dude. I
right,
still think you got me even part of it because
all
I
right.
had no, I've seen this movie like a bajillion times if that was a number, and I did not know that. So that's a good one. Okay, my second favorite movie trilogy. Well, what do you call it when there's four? Because now there's four.
There's gonna be
No
movie
one
people
knows.
out there that,
Comment. Let us know.
yeah, I'm not gonna say it
What is it?
because
Quadruplex.
I don't.
That's a building.
That's like, yeah, it's,
Okay, moving on. Moving on. Second favorite movie, Matrix. In the code in the Matrix comes from what food?
Code in the Matrix comes from what food?
Yeah, I didn't even know it came from a food. I thought it was literally random numbers or symbols. It's not.
Top ramen? I don't know.
Sushi.
Oh,
You should look it up.
okay.
I just said like Matrix trivia, and this was one of the first things that popped up. But I was mind blown. So how many times have we seen that go down? Have you ever questioned what it was?
Well, yeah, I just thought I genuinely thought somebody made it up.
Yeah, there was just some random ones and O's that weren't ones and O's, right? That's it, man. It was so much fun. Thanks for being here.
Hey, looking forward to doing it again.
I love you.
Love you too, man.